Welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show.
This time we head to Salon Prive at Bleinheim Palace for one of the world's most exclusive motoring events.
We also take a look at the production-ready VW ID Buzz, and we say goodbye to the Hemi V8 with the run-out special Chrysler 300C. That's all coming up, but first, the news.
Porsche is to offer 911 million shares at its initial public offering in a nod towards its iconic sports car, the 911. 12.5% of Porsche AG shares will be offered directly to existing Volkswagen Group shareholders, while the 911 million shares are split 50-50 into publicly listed preferred shares and ordinary shares. Porsche's CEO Oliver Blume said the IPO opens up a new chapter to further strengthen the brand's ability and strategy. The news comes as Porsche's proposed Formula One deal with Red Bull has collapsed, with delays over upcoming changes to engine regulations in 2026 said to be to blame.
As the proverb says, all good things must come to an end. And so it is with Dodge's lineup of V8 muscle cars. And now, following the announcement that Dodge won't be building any more Chargers or Challengers at the 31st of December next year, sister brand Chrysler has followed suit. Its flagship saloon, the 300C, is being discontinued, but not before a limited edition run-out special. Sadly, there's no 707 horsepower Hellcat motor under the hood. The iconic 6.4-litre Hemi motor will suffice. It produces an adequate 485 horsepower, which is great, but we do feel they could have done a bit more. After all, the 300 has existed in Chrysler's lineup since 1955, and the current generation car has been with us in some form since 2011. And with the Stellantis sticking the Hellcat motor in everything from Challengers to Jeep Cherokees, surely the 300C was ripe for one. Still, at least it is getting a send-off with some pretty decent gear. Big Brembo brakes are fitted as standard, along with a limited slip diff and a multi-model exhaust for controlled verbals and barks. As you'd expect, just about every bit of optional kit from the regular 300 has been thrown in, as well as some lovely forged alloys and bespoke badging. Regular 300s with lesser engines will remain available for the 2023 model year, with only the C getting the run-out treatment. 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds and a 116 mph top speed aren't that impressive when compared with the cars Dodge is producing, but all 2,200 units sold out in just 12 hours.
Earlier this year, we headed to the Royal Chelsea Hospital in London for what we thought would be the most upmarket, glamorous and classiest classic car show of the year. With champagne and supercars, it seemed to have it all. The only thing then that could top Salon Prive was another Salon Prive, this time held at the magnificent Bleinheim Palace in Oxfordshire. Bigger and better, the Salon Prive Concours d'Elegance brought some of the world's finest cars onto the lawn of one of Britain's most spectacular houses in unique style. There were several classes and themes at the event, ranging from exclusive modern supercars to some of the earliest automobiles ever produced. This is the winner of the pioneering motorcars class, the wonderful Berlier 20 horsepower closed swing seat tonneau. It was built in 1903, so we'll forgive the slightly clunky name, but with its shining brass and original coachwork, it was impossible not to be enamoured with the near 120-year-old antique. Perhaps our favourite class, though, was the pre-war Open, displaying some of the finest cabriolets from the 20s and 30s. Taking home the trophy was the utterly beguiling Alfa Romeo 6C 2300B Miglia Cabriolet by Swiss coach builders Graber. One of only 4 built, this car is the only example remaining and the only one to get the Miglia spec engine and chassis designed for the famous rally from which it got its name. Following a total restoration in 2014, the 6C remains in perfect condition as one of the most elegant and stylish pre-war cruisers, thanks to its incredible shapes and the original demure colour scheme.
Of course, not every car could win its class, but the sheer variety on display made Salon Prive a unique event. Some of the rarest supercars join the classics, like this, the outrageous Lamborghini Reventon Roadster. One of only 20 in the world, this roofless supercar first appeared in 2009 as the brand's most extreme car to date. Based on the aging Murcielago, the Reventon incorporated fighter jet design details into a mid-engine V12 monster with 661 brake horsepower and a price tag of well over £1 million. We can't tell you what it's worth today, but that was likely a sound investment 13 years ago, as it's well and truly a modern classic. On the topic of V12 modern classics though, surely nothing can beat a McLaren F1. If anything can though, maybe it's a pair of them. A brace of Gordon Murray's world-beating supercars took pride and place on the Platinum Collection lawn. Now, you don't need us to tell you what makes the F1 so special, but it is worth going over its performance figures. Currently valued at around £20 million apiece, the F1 achieved legendary status thanks to its 240 miles per hour top speed. In 1992, that made it comfortably the fastest car in the world, a record it held until the Bugatti Veyron was launched in 2005.
And while we're on the subject of speed record holders, American manufacturer Hennessy was in attendance showing off its new Venom F5, a Koenigsegg and Bugatti rival designed to break the 300 miles per hour barrier. On display in both coupe and roadster form, the £1.5 million Venom uses a twin turbocharged 6.6-litre V8, producing an eye-watering 1,792 brake horsepower. Even more impressively, the convertible roadster model gets even more power at 1,817. 30 are to be built, joining the existing 24 coupes that are already on the road. The coupe's claimed top speed is a frankly terrifying 311 miles per hour, with the roadster designed to top out at 300, making it the world's fastest convertible by quite some margin.
Join us again in part 2 as we continue our roundup of the 2022 Salon Prive Concours d'Elegance.
Coming up, part 2 of our Salon Prive roundup, but first.
Few vehicles are as iconic as the Volkswagen Type 2. Synonymous with freedom and adventure, it's had many names over the years: Combi, Transporter, Multivan, and now it has another one, ID Buzz. Finally, after decades of concepts and design studies, Volkswagen has finally revealed its production-ready electric microbus. With its 60s-inspired two-tone paint scheme and its big VW badge on its stubby front end, there's no mistaking its lineage, although the diesel Caravelle will remain on sale. There's no denying that it looks great. No strangers to retro styling, VW has thrown everything at the ID Buzz to ensure it stands out from just about anything else on the roads. The boxy proportions will be familiar to anyone who's ever had their own VW bus, and the squared-off tailgate looks like maybe, just maybe, it could be housing a clattery air-cooled flat 4. Safe to say it isn't. As its ID moniker would suggest, this new Buzz is all electric. Like the original Volkswagen Type 2 vans that were built on Beetle platforms, the ID Buzz is based on the ID3. With the same running gear as the electric hatchback, it gets a 201 brake horsepower motor driving the rear wheels with a 77 kilowatt-hour battery. The range is slightly less than we were expecting at 255, but still decent enough to make it a usable day-to-day family car. With a powerful enough source, it will fast charge from 5 to 80% in half an hour, but more impressive is the bidirectional charging. This standard feature will allow you to feed energy from your car back into the grid. And we do say car rather than bus, as rather disappointingly, the ID Buzz has only 5 seats. It's less of a van then, and more of an oddly shaped car with sliding doors. However, with no third row of seats getting in the way, the ID Buzz has a truly enormous boot. Capacity is a whopping 1,121 litres. Fold the seats down and that grows to 2,205. For buyers who don't need the back seats at all, there is a commercial version that does without the side windows. Like the ID3, the Buzz gets a light, airy interior with lots of colourful details, continuing the retro theme into the cabin. The light-coloured plastics might not be to everyone's taste, but they do a good job of mimicking the painted dashboard and bakelite steering wheels of the classic combis. There's no leather to be found anywhere, with VW making use of recycled alternatives with the goal of making the ID Buzz carbon neutral from manufacture to delivery, something we hope to see more of in the industry. Naturally, there's a big infotainment screen in the middle of the stylish dashboard. As standard, it's a 10-inch screen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you can pay extra for the 12-inch screen seen here. Unfortunately, it also gets the slightly tricky touch-sensitive climate controls from other ID cars, but it's a small irk in an otherwise fabulous interior. Production is now getting underway and prices have just been announced. Entry-level life models start at £57,000, rising to £62,000 for the style trim. It's not cheap, but it's unlike anything else on the roads.
And now the final part of our Salon Prive roundup. A recurring theme in many of this year's car events has been the 75th anniversary of possibly the world's greatest car brand, Ferrari. And Bleinheim Palace's Salon Prive Concours d'Elegance was no exception. With a display of some of the most spectacular cars ever to wear the prancing horse, it was impossible not to stop and pore over each and every one. In the interests of run times and indeed your sanity, we'll spare you the in-depth lectures and instead touch on some of our favourites, starting with something a little unusual, this unique 250 GT Spider Competizione. There are, of course, loads of different versions of the 250, but this Pininfarina-bodied roadster is known as the Cafe Racer, thanks to its bespoke frameless windscreen, a removable driver's head restraint, and the metal tonneau over the passenger seat. Other 250s included this stunning right-hand drive California Spider and a remarkable GT short wheelbase. Perhaps the headline car, though, was the most iconic 250 of them all, the GTO. Famously one of the world's most valuable cars, GTOs are revered for their on-track performance, but we'd argue it's just as impressive seeing one in the Duke of Marlborough's back garden. This particular example is the second one Ferrari built and played an important role in the model's success in its use as a development car. Countless more Ferrari highlights included a gorgeous LaFerrari, the hybrid hypercar from the 2010s, and a striking 365P.
But it wasn't just Italian exotica that caught our eye. A row of beautiful old Citroëns was a pleasant surprise, especially the one-of-one SM Espace. Crafted by commercial coach builders Hurlier, this unique SM features an incredible retractable roof that folds into itself. It may not seem that impressive in 2022, but in 1971, this was space-age stuff. Debuting at the Paris Motor Show, the Espace wowed crowds with its marvellous roof and luxurious leather and green suede interior. Sadly, Citroën wasn't interested and it never made it into production. But that didn't stop it from winning its class in the CONCOURS competition.
But if a futuristic 70s Citroën isn't your cup of tea or indeed your glass of bubbly, take a look at this. It's called the Engler Desas Superquad, and it's quite possibly the maddest machine we've ever featured. In a world where billionaires are spoilt for choice with supercars and hypercars, surely what they need is an 1100 bhp quad bike. Yes, you heard correctly, 1100 horsepower. Designed for smooth tarmac rather than farmyards, this quad bike uses the V10 from an Audi R8 to create just about the most dangerous vehicle we can possibly imagine. Built in Slovakia, the Superquad is capable of 0 to 62 miles per hour in 2.5 seconds, onto a worrying top speed of 217.
Other new cars on display included two new V6 supercars, the 296 from Ferrari and the Artura from McLaren. Rolls-Royce brought along its updated Phantom, and startup company Veritech displayed a model of its new hydrogen hypercar, the 1000 brake horsepower Apricale. The zero-emission fuel cell vehicle uses F1 tech and know-how, while the body was penned by Pininfarina.
Linking the modern hypercars with the vintage Tourers was the fabulous Nardoni 928, a resto mod of the iconic front-engine Porsche priced at just under €500,000. Nardoni took a 928 S4 and gave it a bit of a nip and tuck to create a retro-futurist Grand Tourer that looks like it came straight out of a video game. Changes to the bodywork are remarkably subtle but make a big difference, giving the car a squat, muscular appearance. The interior has been thoroughly modernised, but it still retains an 80s vibe. The original Porsche V8 is tuned to a modest 400 bhp, as Nardoni believes that is quite enough, more of a modern Grand Tourer.
We could go on and on about the priceless classics on display, like this stunning Rolls-Royce Phantom 2, or even historic rally cars like Colin McRae's old Impreza, but we'll leave you with something perhaps even more impressive. It wasn't built by great historic coach builders, and you won't find a high-revving Italian V12 under the bonnet. This is the McMurtry Spearling, one of the most fascinating cars of 2022. It weighs in at under a ton, produces 1,000 brake horsepower, and with an electric motor on each wheel, it's capable of acceleration the likes of which you won't believe. Its sub 2-second 0 to 62 time is impressive, but it will do 0 to 186 in 9 seconds, which is downright absurd. It even has a fan sucking it to the road, while the slippery aero means it'll get 300 miles on a charge. Perhaps the maddest thing, though, is the fact it's road legal. The production version is unlikely to be quite so extreme, but we should find out in 2023.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we bring you the all-new Ford Mustang. Don't miss it.